to the Metapod podcast, the Pokemon podcast that revolves around the evolving meta. Another week, another time with Jake and Sean over here talking about Pokemon cards. How are you, Sean?
I'm good, Jake. You know what's great? I found a locals 5-7 minutes from my house, and it's Sunday mornings, and it's awesome.
I envy you.
I envy myself. I didn't know this was possible.
I was like, oh, maybe I can. The other day when I was looking, so this is a funny story. I was looking at a local league the other day. It was like 15 minutes from my partner's house, and so it's like, oh, I'll just go over there, after I leave, and I go over there because I had looked on the event locator, and they weren't having it that day. And so I was like, even when I do find one, I still can't play like locals.
I will say, so the Pokemon event locator, if you go to the details page, I didn't know if this one was real either because I'd never heard of this, and I don't want to give too many details away because I don't know how okay this is. But
you want to dox yourself?
Well, no, it's fine. I mean, people know I'm in Yonkers, but yeah, like they had a phone number. So I called the phone number listed on the Pokemon event locator, and I guess the organizer answered, and he confirmed, yeah, no, this is real and it's casual and whatever. But the reason I was questioning it is on Google Maps, it's a Cricket Wireless.
Oh.
And so they use that location before Cricket opens to play games, which
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, I'm like, you know what? It's space, man. That's a good use of space in a highly dense urban city. So yeah,
but I'm glad that were you able to play there this morning. For anyone who doesn't know, we're recording on Sunday night.
Yeah, I played there this morning. I brought my Guardy deck. I need practice for Hartford because I'm going to Hartford regionals.
Yeah,
and it was great. I mean, it was super casual, so it wasn't like a tournament or anything proper, but it was cool. It was good.
Did you see the Mewtwo v Union version that was round one of the stream yesterday?
I didn't. Is it?
I can't remember who was playing it. It's someone relatively notable in the Pokemon playing community, but he basically just did not want to lose to Lost Box. So he was he was playing 2 or 3 different Lost Box counters in his deck, and he won it. He won it pretty nicely. So if you want to sway the Lost Box matchup with Guardy, think about adding
putting in 4 different cards.
I mean, it could work. It can work. It worked well for him. That was only one round, and I don't know how well he's doing since then. But I mean, it could work, Sean.
It could. But Jake, are we? I think we have a review this week from Apple. So.
We do. We've got a nice, lovely review over on our podcast. If you want us to read your review, if you want us to read your review, you can give us a tweet. You can give us a review over on Apple Podcast or a YouTube comment as well. Tell us how we're doing. Tell us what you like. Give us some recommendations as well about things to go over in the future. This week, this is Great Podcast by Cater Gator. Say that 5 times fast. 067. It's titled Great Podcast. I love this podcast. I love to listen and learn about all the Pokemon card stuff. I don't personally play or really understand the game, but I'm a longtime Pokemon fan. I love it, highly recommend it, and keep up the great work, y'all.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful. And that's why we like doing, both the collector side, that kind of area, but also the player side as well. So we've got a lot to talk about today for both sides and some updates, especially for you collectors. So Sean, kick it off. What are we talking about first?
Well, the first thing we're talking about is actually an update to one of the things we talked about, I believe, last week. So the Pokemon Company in Japan specifically is doing a partnership with a company called Yu Nagaba. And it's they traditionally, I say traditionally, the point is they do cool line, black and white line artwork. In the past they did it and they featured cards like Pikachu and I think some of the more popular Pokemon just generally. This new collaboration is meant to feature all of the evolutions and Eevee, which is like also super cool. But this time around, they're taking it to the next level with some pretty amazing merch and apparel specifically that I don't know, Jake. I might have to find one of these shirts or Jake, can you explain to us what this apparel, like what are the options for people who just want to rock awesome Pokemon apparel?
This apparel is actually quite nice in my opinion. Like I usually struggle to find personally like good good like collaboration apparel because a lot of times people want to be boisterous, people want to be like in your face type of deal, but a lot of this is like relatively low key, I would say, in this apparel. There's several different designs of t-shirts. You can get t-shirts in black and white with different designs on them. Some of them have all the evolutions. Some of them, like what Sean is showing here, has like a front with all the energies in a small little circle, but then the back is like a Unagaba drawn like back of a Pokemon card.
Yep.
Which is really, really cool in my opinion. And there's a lot of different other things as well. There's like a bandana of the collaboration, some hats with the Eevee on it. That's what I think I'm gonna be looking for, to be honest, because those look super, super cool. And socks as well. You get black or white socks with the designs on it, and again, like the t-shirts with all the evolutions on it. And I think also these are either like pins or stickers that they've included. I'm trying to it doesn't really say in the article on pokebeach.com what they are. I don't know what they
look
are.
like. They look like pins because in Japan they have they have like felt pens.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's actually like a felt material, but they have like a little pin attachment so you can actually pin it to your apparel, hat, whatever. And looking at, I don't know, I could be very wrong, but I wouldn't be surprised if this was like a felt sort of like soft material.
And also, now that you say that, like, and I look at the hat,
Yep.
if you pull up the hat picture, the hat, the white hat with the Eevee on it, it does look like it's a type of like pin because it looks elevated.
Yep.
On the black one, I have no idea, but so I think you're right about that.
Yeah, these are, and then you've got a few. I think these are just tags, and then they have backpacks. The backpacks, I can't really tell where the Pokemon is.
I don't think there is.
Yeah,
it's just with the partner company Gregory, I think.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't see the Pokemon relation here. Sure, fine.
In this as well, the merchandise will be sold through the Beams Apparel Company starting on May 20th, and it can be shipped outside of Japan, so no worry about like proxy stuff and things like that. And I think if you go to the link over on PokeBeach, you'll be able to find out more information of like where to buy it and stuff. If you're interested, and I might have to save that link as well. But some good things come, and Sean, some good things end. Unfortunately, this is the final goodbye. We knew this was coming for the Pokemon trading card game online, so pour one out for a real one. The OG client sunsetting on June 5th, John. And when we say sunsetting, the game's servers are going to go offline. So, I mean, before, like right now, you could just only play with non-Scarlet and Violet cards and stuff like that. But now it's going to be you literally can't play anymore.
Yeah, it's and June 5th seems actually pretty soon. I don't know, like we were kind of thinking,
month away.
Yeah, when they first announced that they would be sunsetting eventually, and that the new cards would only be on live, I was like, okay, that's fine, but the old one might be around for another 6 months to a year. Who knows? No, this was like contract with friendship with Direwolf Digital has been ended, and so I don't know if it says on the announcement. I'm trying to read through. I'm not going to read the whole note out loud, but I'm trying to see if they are. Oh yeah, there's currently no assigned cutoff date for migrating your account and collection. So the
But you
idea.
can migrate. You can migrate. You don't have to be on Pokemon TCG Online to migrate. Like as soon as you try to log in on live, it'll ask you like, "Would you like to migrate?"
Exactly.
I
So,
I believe from when I did it.
but like the good news about that is like, even though the servers are being shut down, the data about your account, what cards you own, etc., is still going to be accessible
Hmm.
through that migration system. So who knows? They eventually, though, I do think that they will even turn that function off. Like it might be a year after the global release date
I would
official.
hope
Who
it's
knows?
longer than that.
Well, because there's going to be people who, like a lot of people, they play a game, they put it down for a little bit, they come back. It would
Hmm.
be it would be big sad to somebody who, stepped away at the wrong time. But
Like a
hey,
little Dark Fury. I mean, he hasn't stepped away. He keeps playing, but like somebody that has an account like
yeah,
Little Dark Fury, where they have like all of this super old Pokemon TCGO stuff, and all these like max rarity cards that they built on their account and stuff like that. But if you want and you go ahead and migrate, if you migrate between now and June 6th at 10 p.m. Pacific time, you're going to get a special global beta gift of global beta coins, deck box, sleeve that you can use on your account. And this also is because the beta is closing soon. Remember, Pokemon TCG Live has been in a global beta still,
yeah,
and now the official, I don't know what to even
release
call it,
date.
like release.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure.
version 1.0.
Version 1.0 is coming soon, and to be honest, like I know we've talked a lot about how PTCG Live is bad and stuff. I have just yesterday hit my first like I lose this game bug.
Yeah.
I finally just hit it. I've been playing for a couple weeks now, and I mean I probably don't play like the streamers the amount that they do, but I'm still playing a good casual amount, and I think I already know what the problem is because I've been playing a lot of Hisuian Zoroark, and sometimes you just can't grab Hisuian Zoroark V off a level, or I'm sorry, off a Great Ball or an Ultra Ball, and that's kind of infuriating. But
I mean,
those are the only bugs. That's the only time. So it's been 2 times out of the 100+ games that I've encountered that's happened.
look, I'm not saying PTCGO was bug free. I don't think anybody think.
The dojo was banned. Wasn't the dojo
Yeah,
like
at one
banned
point.
for over a year or something like that? The fighting dojo
Yeah,
stadium.
yeah. It's some so one. I
Beast
think yeah,
Energy, I
that
think, was
one.
banned too.
Yeah, Beast Energy was banned for a little bit. It's just look, it is what it is. This is your way to play Pokemon. Um, I think the second they announced they weren't going to put Scarlet and Violet on the old one, I think that was just sort of like, hey, if you want to play online, you really have one option. Otherwise, you can play in person. Look, in person is great. And I don't want to knock anybody who plays online. Playing online is super useful for people who don't have access to a local league
Mm-hmm.
in 5, 20, 30 minutes or whatever of them. So there's always value in this. And I think kudos to Pokemon for being a company that does maintain an online game because not every card game company does. So
Mm-hmm.
so while we can want more, there is something available to you.
Hopefully they're taking our feedback and make the official release better than what we've experienced in the beta, because I know a lot of people have had a lot of issues with it, and you know what, it is what it is. We'll move on to the next part.
One thing I'll
Sorry.
say, no, yeah, one thing I'll say, Jake, the PTCGO officially sunsetting and Scarlet and Violet not being on there for a bit, anyways. I kind of it makes me want to play expanded.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why that is? Because
Because we don't have actual expanded events.
well, there's no events, there's no meta, there's no way to play it online to help determine what a meta is. It is actually it's going to be a weird like first time I think in years for the Pokemon where there is an official format that is completely unexplored at a scaled level, right?
Well, what you do is you just play like whatever was good previously at the last regional,
Well,
right?
but you see, that's the thing, right? Is it's there's all these new cards. I think it'll be a really interesting moment if you know want a pretty wild format, but don't want to look at deck lists and just want to go crazy and build whatever.
I
Nobody's
mean,
playing it.
I don't know, cause like if the format, yeah, like new cards are coming in the format, but like it's not like cards are leaving the format,
That's
right? Like
true.
I feel like just whatever, like aggro is still really really good,
Hmm.
right? And really really bothersome. I think Lugia is pretty good. Like you can throw in Lugia, you have all these special energies that you have access to, and you've got stuff like Wally and stuff that can turn one, like put Archeops on the field. But I mean, ADP still running rampant. ADP still really, really good, right? And
Yeah.
dominant in all these decks. I think ADP Blacephalon was really, really good
Yeah. I
in
mean,
the last couple expanded regionals.
I hear with Maridon, I hear Pika Rom is next level
Yeah.
good because
Pika Rom is a huge, like Pika Rom with
right.
Maridon. My
I mean,
God,
yeah, it's just like get all
that
the
is the
lightning you
epitome of
want.
a format that I don't want to play in. I don't want to play in
I mean, it's
because I'd
basically
rather play
Yu-Gi-Oh now.
solitaire.
It's,
Yeah,
anyways, we can move on now. I'm just like, I will be interested to see when this sunsets and when they fix, live to be more and more stable. If the first format they add back, because I really think they're going to be different formats next year. I think they're going to have standard, but I think they're going to have a second format. And I think the big question up in the air if I'm Pokemon is that format expanded or is that format gym leader? I really think that's a serious question internally. Because
I mean, there are pros and cons to both of them for
yeah,
sure.
I fully agree. But I think the pro of Gym Leader is all these old cards, you can only have one copy and they can't be two prizers. So in reality, it's much cheaper and more accessible to anyways. I just
I
think
don't know.
interesting
I don't
thoughts.
like paying $40 for a Cricketot. You know,
Okay, fair enough.
that's my thing with GLC. But I mean, GLC, there are a lot of people that like GLC, and I've played GLC, and it is a fun format, I will say. But anyways, moving on, the deck list for Ampharos and Lucario, the battle decks they have released, and the deck lists are open. We've talked about these deck lists a little bit, going back to level 1 of the deck list. Like we mentioned, you're only going to get one of the poster child Pokemon as they are level 1 deck list, one being Lucario EX, the other being Ampharos EX. And so looking at the deck list that released over on May 5th, I believe that was Friday. Last Friday, they're $10 each again. So I think these are really, really, really good products. They come with the same trainers and number of basic energies. So they're very similar in decks, kind of like quote unquote even playing field, I would say, type of decks. Being able to, and I mean, you get some great stuff in there. You get some Ultra Balls in there, Poke Gears, Switches, Nest Balls, Energy Retrieval. You get some pretty decent trainers, I would say, for $10, along with, different promos, which the Flaffy promo that you see, it's not the Energy Accelerator Flaffy.
No, it's not the good one.
Unfortunately.
I mean,
But you get an Ampharos EX, which the Ampharos, some people are wondering if it's good, like as a one of in Maridon decks, because there are some Maridon iterations, one being in round 13 of the stream. If you're watching, I've got it pulled up right now. Actually, it's actually a Flaffy Maridon list playing on stream right now, 1-0 against Lugia. So
wow.
People are wondering if this Ampharos will be good as a one of in that list to be able to use something like Thundertail Strike or Electro Ball or something like that to, I don't know, to be able to put a beefy 330 prize Pokemon up there.
Yeah, I think that's really the offer on hand because like the energy, like the attack, it maxes out at 240 damage, right? Which is
but
not
again, something
bad.
like Lost Box, right? With Lost Box, not only do you evolve your 90 HP Flaffy, but you also, with that attack, Thunder Strike Tail for 3 energies, which you can easily get with Energy Acceleration and Electromagnetic Radars, or whatever that. What is that called? The item that lets you
Electric
accelerate
generator?
electric generator. Electromagnetic radar is a different card.
Yeah.
That was old in Pikarom. But anyways, it does a base 140 damage, which knocks out almost all of like the lost box cards you would face. So this can be a
Yeah.
really heavy hitter in that matchup.
Yeah, it's true. I think, yeah, the fact that there's a 330 HP attacker that only gives up 2 prizes, you're right.
Mhm.
In a specific matchup, it's also a card that you can't bring up with Serena. So decks that still play Serena for, the boss effect, it's not
Mhm.
targetable. It doesn't give up an extra prize to something like the not the Forest Seal Stone, but the Sky Seal Stone. So, benefits there. And yeah, in certain matchups where you're like, hey, I don't need to bother with Regieleki. It doesn't matter. I don't even need to put that down. Still weak to fighting, which is, its
It's
own
not
challenge.
that bad.
It's not,
I mean, it's not that bad.
yeah,
I mean, there's not really any fighting, right? Like, I think the only fighting is like Urshifu VMAX, Inteleon VMAX, which we featured the other day. I mean, that's
yeah,
like, it's a good deck, but I don't know if it's one that you're like, I have to counter this deck. I think
that's true.
you kind of like more like your Lugia matchup and your Lost Box matchup, and probably also your Gardevoir matchup with that. Because I think about that too. Even though the Ampharos doing a max of 280 might not be able to knock out the Gardevoir EX, the 140 and maybe even the 240 can help you reach, because Gardevoir puts damage on itself, so like
Yeah.
Zacian V when it comes in, 140 HP left. I mean, how many energies does it take to knock this thing out? So
Yeah,
I
that's
think
true.
this can also help you in that matchup. So I mean, I think you definitely include it as a one of.
Yeah,
Just
if you're
first
playing,
thinking about it without testing, just theory.
yeah, I do like it. If you're playing the Flaffy version, then it does feel like, hey, what's the harm, right? You have one more attacker that can maybe throw the opponent's math off. They're sitting there looking, to your point, at a tiny little Flaffy going, well, I can easily get that with my Greninja next turn. And then boom, wait, it's 330 HP now? Wait a minute.
Obviously, you lose some energy acceleration, since you don't have a Flaffy anymore, and now you have an Ampharos. But sometimes in those later stages of the game, or something like that, it's fine to do something of that sort. So who knows?
And then the Lucario EX in the other deck, less beefy at 260 HP, but it's just a stage 1.
Mm-hmm.
And this one, it's interesting. I mean, it does have for a fighting Pokemon to do 160 to the active and then 50 to the bench. So you get a little bit of bench snipe there, which I don't know if there's a lot of fighting decks currently that are doing much of that other than Urshifu, right?
No, I don't know though, because I feel like the fighting deck, at least right now, watching the Champions League through like Paldea Evolved, is probably, I think it's pronounced Ting-Lu.
Oh, right. Does that one
The
do some
fighting
spread?
like moose Pokemon, not necessarily for spread. I don't think it does spread, but just like your fighting Pokemon of choice
Yeah.
right now. Like, it's super beefy, it's super tanky, combos well with Koraidon. So I don't know. It doesn't have to evolve either, which is always nice.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know if I see that specific promo going very far just yet. But
Hmm.
at $10 each, I mean, look, great little thing for, I think, specifically absolute beginners or like kids who like want to play against each other. Like, can't get much better bang for your buck than 2 decks for $20. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a great deal, whether you want, some of the cards that are in here, whether you're, just starting to really be competitive, or, you want to learn how to play the game, or just have fun with someone and teach them how to play the game. Great 2 options.
Jake, do you want to talk a little bit about Portland now?
We are underway. There are 3 regionals that have been going on this weekend, along with a different format going on. Big tournament. There is Portland regionals, there's Sao Paulo regionals, and then Singapore regionals that are of this format. So we're not going to talk about all of them per se, and all the details, because we're actually recording this a little earlier than usual. It's Sunday afternoon. I have an award show to go to tomorrow night, and then Tuesday morning I'm flying potentially very early across the country. So a little bit earlier than usual, but we do have some relevant information for you to be able to help maybe prepare you for something like Hartford, like Sean was saying earlier, where he's going to, or maybe just even your local events, or maybe online, even if you're just a casual online player. So just looking at day one of Portland Regionals, the stream did say that at Portland Regionals that Gardevoir EX was 20% of the format at day one. 20% of players were playing Gardevoir EX. 19.9 lost box. And I think that kind of encompasses all the different lost box iterations of like Sablezard, Turbo, Lost Box. There's also one that was a big note in that 19.9%. And I think Alex Szymanski actually is playing it and showcased it on stream. There are several people floating around that have included the baby Galarian Moltres, the dark type Pokemon that will hit for weakness on Gardevoir and Mew VMAX to get combo knockouts with something like Clara and stuff like that. And if you don't remember what the Galarian Moltres, the little baby, is, that Galarian Moltres, as Sean has got it there from Evolving Skies. Look at that. Two minds think alike. I didn't even tell Sean to put this card up. He just knew. The Galarian Moltres is 120 HP Pokemon with the attack Fiery Wrath for 3 energies, 2 dark and a colorless. It does 20 plus in the attack, so 20 base and then plus, and the plus is 50 more damage for each prize card your opponent has taken. So with Lost Box pretty much getting knocked out a Pokemon every single turn because your guys are so tiny, right? You force them to take 6 prizes in the game, 6 different knockouts. And so you can honestly be down 6 prizes to 2 against Mew VMAX, right? It's going into your turn. They've got 2 prizes left. You can take a knockout, right, with Galarian Moltres. You go down to 3 prizes. They have 2. They take a knockout with Mew. Your Moltres goes to the discard. They go down to 1 prize left. And you could just Clara, grab those energies, and take another knockout. You've got energy accelerators in the format like Mirage Gate to be able to get those energies from the deck if it's kind of a little bit earlier in the game, or maybe even late in the game. You also, have the ability to grab all those energies from the discard pile and put them into the deck late game because you have something like Energy Recycler and things like that. And with Clara, you can put them right back in your hand, as I mentioned, because if you don't remember, this Galarian Moltres has that ability. Once you put the card from your hand onto your bench, you can accelerate up to 2 dark energies from your hand onto that Pokemon. So, Sean, a lot of people been thinking about this card because there's 2 big decks right now that have a big weakness to dark. It's 30% of the day one format, Mew being 11%.
Yeah,
day one.
This card terrifies me. I'm playing Gardevoir currently, and your Gardevoir EX in a lot of games, that Gardevoir EX feels pretty safe, right? It's beefy. It sits in the back, and whatever. It's fine. And you think to yourself, okay, well, if they're gonna take it out, they're either gonna have to hit twice into it, which is good for me, or they're gonna have to really load up something like a Drapion V. But to your point, Jake, if they're playing a variant of Lost Box that doesn't need to put a 2-prizer down, doesn't even need a Mirage Gate in order to get this thing powered up necessarily, it's just, this card is terrifying, just straight up.
It's also 25 cents on TCG Player Lightly Played. So excellent value to include in your deck. And also, Sean, I mentioned earlier, I mentioned Mewtwo V Union. Yep. That thing will wipe out Mewtwo V Union. Mewtwo V Union is supposed to be a tank up top that Lost Box can't KO. Perfect answer to that card. So beware, Sean.
Yeah, no, and the thing is, there's no way to. Well, there are some ways to know whether or not it's coming. If you see a darkness energy at any point when you're playing
Yeah, you're
against,
like, oh, red flag.
I'm in danger,
Yeah.
So if you are planning to go to any tournament, going to any regional in the next few weeks, and you're playing against
Or you're
Lost
just
Box,
playing online. Yeah.
yeah, or you're playing online. And if you're playing against Lost Box, just keep your eyes on that energy. It's like if they got lightning energy, they probably play like, Raikou. They might even play the Dragonite. If they got a fire energy, that's a Charizard deck.
Mm.
Darkness energy, okay. I guess this
It's
is
a panic button.
no, run. Yeah.
I will
So
also say in day one decks, Lugia Archeops took up a little bit over 11% of the format, Miraidon being 6%, and Hisuian Gudra V-Star at just under 6%. So again, Gardevoir, the number one played deck in day one. Lost Zone box variants, number two, just really, really close to that. And then a pretty substantial drop off, I would say, going into Lugia Archeops at third, Mew VMAX right behind it at second, and then another significant drop into Miraidon EX and Hisuian Gudra EX. So 25% of the of day one, the 1,286 participants in Masters are playing other decks that we just mentioned, that are not in like that top 6 side of that. And I will say one of those other variants that's not in that top 6, Lee Bui. He's playing Alex Szymanski's winning deck of Arc Dura Vulpix. Now, there may be some changes to it. We don't know the exact list of 60, but before day 2 started, he was 9-0. Sean.
Yep. I mean,
9-0.
It's just, they were talking about this on stream, on the Portland stream earlier, and it's a great counter deck. The meta hasn't really changed all that much from EUIC. So like, I think what that goes to show is they didn't fully respect the Alolan Vulpix. And so you didn't see, or at least Lee didn't see a ton of techs to, make sure that you could get past that Alolan Vulpix if need be. So yeah, he was able to just have a really, almost entirely smooth day one going into day two. I have no idea how he'll pan out with the rest of the tournament, but
we do have information according to PokeStats, because PokeStats.live now shows the pairings records.
Oh my!
Players up to right now. Lee Bui is actually 11-1-0 into round 13. In the middle of that, so still right at the top, still number one with that list, not having too much difficulty. I think he's 2-1 right now.
Okay.
In day two, according to my math, if that is correct. There are also notable players in here. Alex Szymanski at number 3 with that Lost Box with the Galarian Moltres. As I was mentioning earlier, Grant Manley also playing Lost Box along with, I don't know if they're partners still for this tournament, but they're usually testing partners. Azul Garcia Griego over at 12th. Hunter Butler is top 15, but we don't know what his deck is yet. In there, Grant Shen, 16. I think Grant Shen was the one that was playing Gardevoir with the Mewtwo V Union.
Interesting.
I think so. Not 100% sure.
So what's interesting about the current standings is like, look, Guardy's good, but Guardy seems to be like, there's not a lot of Guardies as far as we can tell initially in that top 16. But obviously a lot of Lost Box decks, a few Mews, and then some unknown decks. So we'll see what those end up actually being. But yeah,
there's still plenty of tournament as well in here. So even though we're saying right now, Guardy is not doing so hot, not appearing inside the top 15, that doesn't mean that later in there, Grand Shen could go undefeated the rest of the way after the recording of this podcast and, be the inside the top 8 and win the whole entire thing. So we'll just see how it is afterwards.
I will say on the topic of that Alolan Vulpix, there was a card, and it's, it's not like if, people are focused on like the meta game pretty intensely, they'll already know this, but Mimikyu EX is a great card to consider for that deck because there is no ability on that Mimikyu EX, and it does 30 times the amount of energy on both Pokemon. So that's a great option to, like, if you need, you can just slap a bunch of energy on, scale it up in one turn, take out that Alolan Vulpix before it, wreaks too much havoc. So, if you are playing Gardevoir in particular, I don't know what the other techs for other decks are, but that one in particular is something to consider. If this deck goes on to, like, top 4 or even win this tournament, people might just be like, you know what, maybe I will pick it up.
I mean, and I think the thing that Guardy needs to do, and we'll talk a little bit how Guardy is just super strong later in a little bit, but I think what Guardy needs to do in response to this regional tournament, especially with the emergence of like the Lost Box variant with the Galarian Moltres, like we harped on about, and I feel like I've said 100 times already in this podcast, I feel like it needs to adapt to be able to counter. And I don't know if that counter is putting up Pokemon that are not weak to dark, finding like random psychic basic Pokemon that can go in and attack. I don't know if, I don't know. It's got to find.
Radiant Gardevoir is not bad.
Radiant Guard. Well, I don't know, because a lot of times with the dark,
it's not that
kind of hit you weakness to one shot, right?
Well, yeah, no, it's not. I don't think it necessarily stops the one shot, but if you're looking for other attackers.
Oh, you're saying Radiant Gardevoir is not a bad attacker.
Exactly, because you're doing 70 base, and then you do 20 more for each energy attached to the opponent's active, which would put you at, I believe, 130. And Moltres is 120.
10 off.
No, you'd be 10 over.
120. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So okay, maybe.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying, like, it's an option that I may or may not have Radiant Gardevoir in my deck because I don't have that many copies of Radiant Greninja. But it's just happy accidents.
It's helped you out,
I'm just saying.
One of those things. It's one of those things. There was a quote before they started the stream. So again, like we said earlier, Lost Box was 20% of day one, and we kind of looked at the standings and told you a little bit about what's up here in the standings in round 13 as of right now. There was a direct quote in there that I heard that said Lost Box is, quote, almost 30% in day 2. So tons and tons of Lost Box made it through. It's got to be the most popular day 2 deck. It has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be.
It's one of those decks that, like, again, it's all pilot based. It's like, obviously it's a good deck, but if you are not familiar enough, don't have a lot of confidence with it, you'll end up losing because you make mistakes. You'll end up tying because you're playing too slow, whatever it might be. So, if you love Lost Box and you want to bring it to any event that is best of 3, you got to get in reps, because nobody loves sitting and watching a Lost Box deck do nothing until you run out of time. So
I will say in there enough about Portland because it's not over yet, but we do know the results of the Singapore regionals. This was top 16 cut, and the decks inside of it over there, Cashman over at 12th. We talked about Cashman before on this podcast. Ended up winning the whole thing with Arceus V-Star, Giratina V-Star. So we know the memes as of late of, well, you might not know, Sean, because you're not on Twitter, but there's been controversy of whether or not Arceus Giratina is a good deck or a pile of 60 cards. And so Cashman saying it's a legitimate deck, taking it to the event and winning the entire thing. But as you can see, kind of in this top 16 list that is in here, there's some decent variety in here. There's a lot of Arceus in here, especially, at this bottom half of the 16th, 12th, 13th, 16th in there, and then also 4th place overall. Mew VMAX has a couple appearances in the top 8 spots, 1st, 5th, and 7th. And reminder, this is when top 16 cut happened at the regional. This is not like the final results, like how they actually placed. Because remember, the person who got 12th into top cut ended up winning the entire event. So a lot of good stuff in here. There's some Gudra, there's some Inteleon, there's some Gardevoir as well, Miraidon up there. It feels like pretty typical. The only thing that I would say in here is that Singapore does not really have Lugias in here. I think there's just one Lugia in this top 16.
Yeah, I wonder if it's just maybe it had a bad showing or it's not as popular, maybe. Because, we talked about it last week that the new Lugia deck with all the single strike stuff does seem like, on the surface, it could be a really good deck. So, not sure why it's not the most popular thing. But,
I think it's just nerfed.
It did get a little nerfed to be frank.
Considerably,
Do you know what the weird thing for me here is? There's only 2 Lost Box decks. So if you compare this to the current regional Portland that's going on, it does feel like there's a lot less Lost Box in this top tables. So we'll see how this tournament shakes out too, but that could be one big difference as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. How it just feels, like completely two different coins almost, right? Like Gardevoir and Lost Box being the top decks over there. And we don't have the exact number of in the event overall, how many Lost Box decks were there, how many Gardevoir decks were there. But you can imagine decks that are that popular take up 1 or 2 top 8 spots, at the least. So we'll see what happens. We'll see where it goes. And but if you want to know the future a little bit, I was watching the Champions League. I didn't get to watch this final, but I watched several rounds of the Champions League. This is basically essentially Japanese.
It's like a Japanese regional.
Yeah, like a Japanese regional event that goes on, and they stream it on YouTube and stuff. And there were some great matches. I will say, though, Gardevoir finished 1st and 2nd in the event. So Gardevoir, as Ethan Heggie is saying, the card's legal in Paldea Evolved, coming over. It's been doing awesome in Japan, and it's probably going to do a lot of similar things in the US, maybe not exactly, but that and Iono being a big deal in these decks as well. And then also Chin Pao also making a top 16.
Yeah. I have no idea what makes Gardevoir that much better. It may simply be Iono.
Just Iono. Yeah, it just has to be Iono, really.
Because Iono is effectively you and your opponent shuffle their hand, put it on the bottom, and then you draw cards equal to the number of prizes.
Yeah, it's like they combined Marnie and N together.
Yeah, so in terms of a late game, it affects you almost not at all because you have this crazy Curlia draw engine. It affects your opponent immensely. It's so amazing that one card, right? That and honestly, Iono is not. It's not even a bad card as a pure replacement.
I think Iono is literally Iono is a staple.
Yeah.
It has to be.
Yeah. And I'm thinking about would I play that and completely get rid of all of my professor's research? And the answer is maybe. You might want one research if you have a bunch of energy in hand. And
you probably don't want all of them.
Right. But the nice thing is that you can play Iono any turn. You're going to at least draw you're going to draw 6, and so will your opponent. But worst case scenario, right? That's it. You just put your hand on your deck, draw 6, call it a day. So, I don't know.
One final word of Portland Regionals. Kyle Sukovich, a.k.a. Puka, the god, Mr. Pokemon himself, essentially, says, quote, on Twitter, Portland Regional stream starting round 13. Lots of Arceus, Lugia, and Lost Box at the top tables. Arceus Giratina seems like the breakout deck at this event. So maybe Cashman's onto something, Sean.
We'll see. I gotta tune into the regionals now and see what's going on with Arc Giratina.
We will keep going over watching the regionals, and we'll tell you more about it next week on the Pokemon Podcast. And make sure, check it out yourselves over at twitch.tv/PokemonTCG. You can watch the VODs of the stream. Some really great games, some really great insight with the casters and things like that. But that's all for us. Have a great, fantastic week, and we'll see you next time.